Welcome to our electric vehicle lunch and learn. Yay! I'm Talia Lane. I am the Director of Marketing and Business Initiatives at Mathis Financial Group, and I'm also the very proud President of 2022 of the Ajax Pickering Board of Trade. I am so happy to be here today. This is a topic that I'm very interested in, and I'm excited to learn about EVs for both our company and my personal interest. I'm sure that's why you're all here as well. So thank you for joining us. This is a large group, great event. And before I begin, I would like to acknowledge those who have made today possible, because without your support, this doesn't happen. So our presenting sponsor, Elexicon Energy, thank you. And joining us today, right in the front, we have Moran McDonald, Vice President of Distribution Operations. We have Adina McKay, Manager of Communications, Government and Public Affairs, and her team, Chris Mace, Jessica Sumaru, and Melanie Walls. And they have arranged the plug and drive to be here today to provide this amazing EV test drive opportunity. So thank you. I would also like to thank our event sponsor, Surge Arrest Canada Inc., represented today by Adrian Khan, Vice President of Operations, and Charmaine Singh, Vice President, Finance and Administration. Make sure you see their booth at the back. They have Ferrero Rocher chocolates if you need a sugar rush halfway through. So, thank you. And lastly, our centerpiece sponsor, Express Employment Professionals. Daisy is sitting over there. Thank you so much for providing the lovely centerpieces today to brighten up the room. A group of annual sponsors supports the ongoing work of the Ajax Pickering Board of Trade, and without their support, we definitely can't do what we do. So please allow me to thank our premier sponsors, Bell, Boyer Auto Group, Durham Live, Elexicon Energy, Hubble Canada, McGovern Hurley, OLG, OPG, Safran, TD Bank, and UPAC. Thanks, guys. We also are grateful for the support from Casino Ajax, Pickering Casino Resort, the City of Pickering, the Town of Ajax, Durham College, and Trent University at Durham. So thanks again. Okay, that's a lot. Sorry, guys. Since 1955, the Ajax Pickering Board of Trade has served as the voice of business in our community through our pillars of driving success, advocacy, and community. Driving success includes the commitment to provide tools and opportunities that empower businesses to learn, grow, and succeed. If you're already an APBOT member, thank you for contributing your voice to our network. And if you are not a member, we welcome the opportunity to share the importance of our organization. So today's Lunch and Learn is being filmed by Genis Films and Photos, and it will be posted on the Ajax Pickering Board of Trade YouTube channel, so you'll be able to share the link with your colleagues, employees, and network, and obviously refer back if there's something that you forget later. I'm so proud of our agenda today, guys. We have some experts here who will share their wealth of knowledge that will help us make informed decisions around electric vehicles. We have a QR code. Is that working, Jess? The QR code? Okay. Something's working. So we have a QR code where you'll be able to scan and download today's presentation. So if it does not work, at least you'll have that to go back with. If you're struggling with that, please see Jessica, Kevin, or Chris. They can help you with it. And Chris is out at the registration table, so on your way out, you can always ask him. All right, housekeeping is out of the way. I am very pleased to invite Moran McDonald, Vice President, Distribution Operations, from today's presenting sponsor, Elexicon Energy.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I won't say my name again because it was just introduced, but I am here from Elexicon today, and we're very proud to be the presenting sponsor for today's event. So Elexicon Energy powers more than 174,000 homes and businesses across various communities of southeastern Ontario, including the town of Ajax and the city of Pickering. But we are more than just poles and wires. As the fourth largest municipally owned distributor of electricity in Ontario, our vision is to empower the communities we serve and help customers seize opportunities to ignite a better future. With the electricity system needing to undergo significant transformation to meet the evolving needs of our customers over the next 3 decades, when the population is forecasted to more than double in Durham region, we are focused on adapting to the changing nature of the energy landscape. At the forefront, Elexicon believes in community health and addressing the effects of climate change on our environment. We are a proud partner of the Region of Durham's Climate Action Plan, Envision Durham, and the region's climate resilient development and sustainability objectives, just to name a few. I know from experience as an EV owner that there are so many questions about electric vehicles. What maintenance do they require? What is the true cost of ownership? Where do I look for charging stations, and more? Today's presentations will leave us all with a better understanding of the what, why, and hows of electric vehicles. So thank you all for being here today, and thank you to the Ajax Pickering Board of Trade for organizing this event, and to Plug and Drive for your partnership today. And now I would like to invite MPP Patrice Barnes up to the podium. MPP Barnes is a proud wife, mother, public school board trustee, cultural organizer, and community safety advocate. Please join me in welcoming MPP Barnes.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today. I am really interested in EVs and the future of that, or what we will do with electric energy and the things that we talk about, which is pretty amazing. I would like to thank the Ajax Pickering Board of Trade and Elexicon Energy and all the other sponsors for inviting me and putting together this great event to promote e-vehicles and other electric initiatives. I would like to extend my special thanks to Charles and Jessica for all the going above and beyond to get this going. I know it's growing pains when you're putting together an event of this sort. So we all understand that, we're starting to look with global warming and all the other things that we're talking about in our future development, that EV is going to play an important part of where we are in our next step of manufacturing and the presentations of cars. And so I'm very thrilled that we are coming together to have these discussions. There is growing pains on both sides, and so as we talk about, even at our government level, about the development of the Ring of Fire and having access to minerals that actually we'll need to make electric vehicles, I'm glad that we're starting to have these conversations and growing past the anxiety about having electric vehicles as main vehicles within our economy and for everybody to use. I think the challenge, of course, will be accessibility and affordability, and so talking about this and getting vehicles to where the normal person will be able to talk about having an electric vehicle in their driveway and not it being the luxury car. So thank you again for coming together. Looking forward to the discussions that we'll have around this.
Thank you, Patrice. That was excellent. So now we're ready for some learning. Our first presenter, Ian McVey, is the Manager of Sustainability with Durham Region, where he is responsible for championing climate action across the region. Ian works in collaboration with local municipalities, utilities, academic institutions, industry, and community partners to design and implement programs, secure resources, and build the capacity needed to enable the transition to a low-carbon and climate-resilient Durham region. That's excellent. So please join me in welcoming Ian to the stage.
Thank you so much. It's really a pleasure to be here. Really excited to be on the stage here and sort of be part of this really important conversation about the future of transportation, the future of energy in Durham region. I'm going to my talk is going to be focused around, I'm going to start that watch, focused really around, the why this is an important shift for us to be making, what our strategy is to move forward on this shift over the next 20, 30 years, and then really some really exciting examples of that clean energy shift in action. Awesome, because there's a lot happening right before our eyes, including what we saw today. So why the shift? You can switch through that one pretty quickly. Why the shift? Of course, this is not news to anyone. Climate change is happening, and it's a really, really important issue for our communities. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change just last year came out with what amounts to a code red signal for humanity that if we do not dramatically reduce our greenhouse gas emissions over the next 20, 30 years, we're in for some pretty catastrophic outcomes. And we're already seeing this impact, in Durham region. In May, derecho storm, a new word for many of us, that devastated communities in Pickering and Uxbridge in particular. And of course, as we look to our friends and family in the East Coast who are right now preparing for the impacts of Hurricane Fiona, that is looking to be the largest storm to ever hit Atlantic Canada. So anyways, we know that this is happening, and this is really, next slide, really a question of energy use. The vast majority of our greenhouse gas emissions in Canada come from energy, and in particular from our use of fossil fuels. So 2/3 of Canada's energy comes from fossil fuels, and hence the lion's share of our greenhouse gas emissions. So bringing this right back home in Durham region, next slide please. When we look at our greenhouse gas inventory, approximately 5 million tons per year, it's really a question of how we heat our homes and buildings, i.e. natural gas, how we power our vehicles, gasoline, diesel. That's really the largest share. Industry is actually highly concentrated in one facility in Bowmanville, that cement plant. Cement is an incredibly energy intensive and carbon intensive industry, so that almost, the lion's share of that 29% is that facility. So when it comes to municipal government, the region, Ajax, Pickering, we're really focused on these sort of the buildings and the transportation side, which is really related to, how we live and get around on a day-to-day basis. And when we look at the trends over time, we see some kind of encouraging trends lately, 15% reduction, but of course we know why that is, because we all had to stay at home for 2 years. And so the decline in, getting to work and going to and fro has had a significant impact. But of course, anyone who's using the roads today knows that that's no longer the case, and that our roads are busy again, which is good, a sign of us getting out and seeing people and doing things, but also means that our greenhouse gas emissions are going back up. So we have our work cut out for us, and that's really the context for the region having declared a climate emergency in January 2020. I know Ajax, Pickering, Oshawa, almost all the municipalities in Durham region have joined the 600 plus Canadian municipalities that have declared a climate emergency. And several of which, and Ajax is a leader in this, of having committed to the race to zero, the race to net zero greenhouse gas emissions, which is a significant challenge for us collectively to meet. So that's the context, that's the why. And actually, I want one more slide in this section is, I think, because we think about climate change as like a global thing, and it's China's fault, it's India's fault, it's the Americans, or it's the big corporations. But really, when you look at the levers of change, local governments have a big role to play. In Ontario context, we have direct or indirect control over 60% of greenhouse gases that are emitted. That's through our role as, in the case of local governments and their ownership of electricity utilities like Elexicon. It's through our role in providing transit services, land use planning and infrastructure. So we have a big role to play as local governments, and I'm excited to tell you about some of our strategies and actions to help take advantage of that capacity. So when we look at our strategy and our low carbon pathway, so we did a modeling exercise looking at the least cost pathway to achieving our greenhouse gas targets, and it's really, again, it's this consistent story of transportation, which is that light green wedge. You see it going from a big wedge to a very small wedge, and the residential sector, i.e. homes. So similarly, a similar sort of trajectory there. That's where our least cost emission reductions are. EVs are a big part of that, as are a number of other strategies. So when we bake that into a sort of goals and strategic pathways, this is about energy efficiency, so reducing energy use. We're looking to reduce energy use by at least 1/3 over the next 30 years. Shifting that remaining energy consumption to low carbon sources, so increasing our local capacity for energy generation through solar, wind, other renewable sources, renewable natural gas being a key opportunity that the region has through waste management, wastewater management. Increasing the efficiency of our transportation system through transit, sustainable transit infrastructure, and I'm going to drill into that a bit more specifically. So our strategic objectives really are, as I said, expanding the infrastructure for transit, cycling, and walking so that we can increase the share of trips that are taken by something other than a vehicle, and in particular something other than a single occupant vehicle. So we're hoping by 2030 that we've got at least a third of the commuting trips that happen happening through a sustainable mode, and that in particular by 2050 a lot more of the internal trips, i.e. a trip that's like to the corner store, to the grocery store, to the school. We were talking about schools and getting your kids to and from school. Less and less of that happens by walking. When I used to walk to school, I'm sure that most of us did back in the day. But now, actually, most kids get to school, are driven to school, even if it's a relatively short trip. There's a lot of reasons for that, safety and the like that need to be addressed. But those are some of the keys, sort of from an infrastructure side. And then we need to electrify everything else. We need to electrify transit, electrify our personal vehicles, our municipal fleets, et cetera, and I'll talk a bit about that in the slides that come. So that's the sort of the strategy in a nutshell. I've got about 3 or 4 minutes left to talk about some of the really exciting things that are happening at the region, and you'll hear more from the other speakers as well about exciting things. So we're doing a lot of work collaborating on leveraging funding. So the federal government is offering funding through the Zero Emission Vehicle Infrastructure Program. The region has led a number of applications with our local municipalities, our utilities, school boards, everyone. We're working with everyone to try to leverage funding. We've got funding for 180 EV charging stations, level 2s, level 3, that will be installed, that are being installed now and over the next couple of years at close to 60 locations across the region. This is in multi-unit residential buildings, our own social housing buildings, public spaces like rec centers, workplaces to encourage employees to uptake an electric vehicle. Of course, our own fleets and on-street parking, which is an exciting opportunity to sort of support local business and local tourism. So that's really exciting. The Plug and Drive event that's happening today, this is another example. We worked last year with Plug and Drive and had an EV road show that went all across the region over the summer, and it led to more than 500 people getting behind the wheel of an electric vehicle. Now we wish that there was greater supply and that you didn't have to wait 18 months to get a vehicle, and hopefully that. I guess that's a sign, a good sign and a bad sign. I don't know. Certainly we know that the EV supply is going to jurisdictions that have purchase incentives like Quebec and BC. So there's a challenge there, certainly in terms of our supply chain. But of course, electric vehicles, we think we're talking about the four-wheel kind with a steering wheel, but on the next slide, we know that we can see on our streets, of course, a wide range of electric vehicles, including the two-wheeled variety, including electric scooters, e-bikes. Cameron rode here in an e-bike, which is a good sign of things to come. We're seeing this more and more in our communities, and the region actually just passed a bylaw earlier this year to encourage and support micro mobility devices on regional roads. So this is also an exciting part of this transition that's happening. And last, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention and speak to some of the critically important work that the Durham Region Transit is leading to sort of transition to a zero-emission bus fleet. So we're kicking off our battery electric pilot this year, taking our first set of electric buses later this year into 2023, again, depending on supply chain. We had our autonomous electric vehicle pilot in Whitby that was encouraging people to take a sustainable mode into the Whitby GO station. We're building a new net zero maintenance facility to house this future fleet of electric buses. And all of this is really aligned with trying to meet Durham Region's target of achieving net zero emissions as a corporation by 2045. So the fleet transition plan that's underway right now on the next slide is really looking at a super complex challenge of how do we align infrastructure upgrades, upgrading our depots to enable maintenance of a new fleet of electric buses. How do we align with retirement cycles so that we're replacing diesel buses with electric buses as that happens, and do we need to accelerate retirement schedules, et cetera, et cetera. So a very complex challenge, but they've come up with a very aggressive and exciting plan that's really taking them to a complete transition to electric buses by 2037. So starting in 2024, which is just around the corner from a municipal budgeting perspective, only electric buses will be produced moving forward, and over time, through retirements, by 2037, the whole fleet will be electric. So that's really exciting, and we'll be supporting, leading to upwards of a 90% emission reduction by 2030, 95% by 2045. All of which with only 1% cost increase over the sort of the business as usual bus procurement plan. A lot of that is because of the changing fuel price dynamics, which of course all of us are experiencing going to the pump. And so this is a really exciting way to show that this is going to be environmentally friendly, but also economically advantageous for the taxpayer. So that's great. That's all I got, and I hit it 11 minutes. Thanks so much. If there are questions, I'd be happy to take them. Yes.
Just an observation. You know about Tony Seaback?
That name is not familiar to me.
Kind of futurist guy. Been predicting things very accurately for many years, like told Kodak to get out of film.
Okay.
Before they went broke, they didn't listen.
Yeah.
Anyway, he says within 10 years, over 60% of the vehicles will be off the road completely, whether gas or electric, with the combination, he calls them technology crunches, the combination of electric vehicles, self-driving vehicles, and the, whatever you want to call a taxi system without naming names.
Right.
That uses
Starts with a U?
Self-driving
Yeah.
car. So it will be way cheaper for people to just call an Uber up, call something up, and it'll pick them up, drop them off, no parking, won't pay to own a vehicle, even electric, if you're in a relatively, and that's where he says, in 20, 15, 20 years, you'll be able to put San Francisco in the empty LA parking lots.
I mean, it's true. It's shocking how much of our land use is parking. And in a future like that, how much of that parking might be otherwise beneficially used for maybe parks or other sorts of things. So no, certainly that's an interesting, it's a hard to crystal ball the future of the transportation system, but it's hard to deny that.
Crystal ball, that technology is all here now.
Yeah.
It just takes a little forethought, like not building any more highways for sure. Big ones.
Thanks for that. Any other questions or comments? Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Glenn McFarland. You talked a lot about emissions, and even a simple accountant like me can understand that my gas-consuming car emits something that an EV doesn't. But I'm more of a macro thinker in terms of where do the resources come from, what is the environmental impact of mining them, refining them, getting them here, what happens to the battery at the end. Do you have any data in
I think
the whole cycle?
there's an important, and I purposefully made my presentation a bit more all-encompassing because I don't think EVs are a silver bullet, right? We need to look at transit and other sustainable mode shares, cycling, walking, etc. But certainly, we're looking at it on a life cycle basis, well to wheels, I guess you'd say. In a jurisdiction like Ontario, where you've got low carbon, zero carbon base load, it makes sense on a life cycle basis, or it's more environmentally advantageous on a life cycle basis to drive an EV than it is an internal combustion engine. Yeah.
Is there, I've looked for information. I'm not taking a ton of time to look because I have other things to do, but I can't readily find that kind of information. I get it, varies jurisdiction to jurisdiction.
Yeah.
But even just, can we compare this car to this car?
There is that analysis out there. I'd be happy to maybe chat with you afterwards and share it with you. And I would also say the batteries, because that's the big piece, right? Is the mining of the lithium, refining of the lithium, and then the end of life. So that's a big challenge, and I think the supply is another kind of question mark as well on a long-term basis. But there's also exciting opportunities to use EV batteries at quote unquote end of life, when maybe they've got 40% capacity left in them, to use them as battery storage, because they're still going to be useful over a longer term basis. And so pairing that with the solar battery storage in a as a resilience sort of measure is another opportunity to sort of extend the life and amortize, to use an accounting term, the environmental costs over a longer term to sort of create that benefit. So I think the science is pretty clear and the evidence is pretty clear that, again, in a jurisdiction with a low carbon energy supply, then an EV is advantageous. But again, that's not to say that it is a silver bullet, because it doesn't address congestion, it doesn't address vehicular injuries and deaths that happen on our roads. So all of the other impacts of being behind a wheel. So we do need to look at it more of an all inclusive sort of approach to our sustainability transition.
And how many, maybe this is an Elexicon question, but can we all get an electrical vehicle tomorrow and our grid and power supply sustain that much electricity?
These are good questions. So I had a colleague, at Whitby, at the region, who bought an EV and then wanted to install a level 2 charger in their garage, and unfortunately they were told that the capacity wasn't there, and that they'd have to, there'd have to be a substation upgrade. I have an EV. I don't have a level 2. I just 120 volt plug, and I charge overnight, and it's fine. But there are questions, and I think there needs to be, as part of grid modernization, looking at opportunities to beef up both the distribution end in terms of energy supply, and looking at vehicle to grid charging opportunities, so you can have the vehicles that are sitting idle in the vast parking lots to support grid resilience. But also on the energy generation side, we need to be having important conversations around how we support that. But I mean, it's an imperative, right? I mean, climate change is real, and we cannot continue to burn gasoline and diesel for the next 30, 40, 50, 70 years and hope to have a livable planet. So there's important conversations to have around how we do this in a way that maintains our level of prosperity and standard of living. Yeah, it's important conversation for sure.
Those conversations are happening at the provincial and federal level, so I just wanted to kind of let everyone know, and from our jurisdiction, Elexicon Energy is at the table and having those conversations as well, and we understand that there is an energy crisis going on in the world, not just, and we're not immune to it. So 100% with the end, but I just wanted to let everyone in this room know that we are at the table.
And it's the GTA East that's actually particularly, so the IESO, the Independent Electricity System Operator, has done their annual power outlook that projects out 10 years now to mid-2030s, and they are projecting a shortfall in electricity supply, mainly due to the retirement of Pickering and the refurbishment of Darlington and Bruce. I will get to, and I think you had a question as well. And I'm taking up way too much time. I'm sorry. Do I need to cut it off? Okay. There is a power crunch, but there's a real opportunity in GTA East because of the population growth, opportunities for low carbon energy supply locally that I think have important economic development opportunities.
Are you able to stick around?
Yeah. I'm sorry. Can I talk to you guys after?
Yeah. Thank you.
Or maybe you can ask that question to someone else. I'm sorry. Cameron's coming up next. Cameron from the town of Ajax, Supervisor of Sustainability. Great colleague of mine, we chat all the time. I'm not going to go in depth on the intro.
Hi everyone, thank you. As Ian said, I'm Cameron Richardson. I'm with the town of Ajax. I'm the Supervisor of Environmental Sustainability and Climate Change with the town. So I'm really focused on all of our climate action and initiatives, and cover a broad range of topics from water and air quality all the way to EVs and resilience. So in my presentation, I wanted to give a bit more of a specific example on how, the history of our EV and electrification journey, when it started and the small steps we took all the way up to now, and what our future outlook is. Is it frozen? That's all right. So in 2019, like Ian mentioned, town of Ajax declared a climate emergency. And in 2021, through council motion, we actually aligned our GHG reduction targets with the region. So we do have net zero targets, and they're ambitious targets, aggressive targets that we'll have to have a lot of action required to achieve those targets, even the short-term ones. And then actually earlier this year in April of 2022, through a council motion as well, staff were directed to undertake what we're calling a green fleet strategy. So up until now, we have not had a green fleet strategy. So it is something that we need to look at, and similar to the region with their transit fleet, we need to look at it specifically on how to price it out and what steps are going to be required to do it. So I'll just go through, maybe some of you have the presentation open. I know you can use the QR code. Is it? Okay, you can skip forward. Okay, so just as a bit of background as well, in our current official plan, so the plan that lays out how we develop our town, it is due for an update, but the current official plan does mention electric vehicles several times, mostly in section 2, which has to do with climate change protection, where we state that strategic actions need to be taken to reduce Ajax's vulnerability to climate change and the impacts of severe weather. And you can see the several subsections where electric vehicles are actually mentioned. So we mention it in climate change protection. We mention it in a section that talks about air quality and the urban heat island effect. And for those who don't know, the urban heat island effect is when you're in an urban environment like Ajax, which has more paving, more impermeable surfaces, the surface and air temperature is a lot hotter here than it would be up in the rural areas. So that's what we call the urban heat island. And then obviously in a section related to energy conservation, we mention the important role that EVs have. Next slide, please. So back in 2013, long before my time at the town of Ajax, we completed the Integrated Community Sustainability Plan. And it did identify electrification of our corporate fleet as a key priority to achieving our goals. And it's funny because back in 2013, those goals for fleet electrification were actually identified to improve air quality. And that's what we were trying to achieve with doing that. And then now we're talking in 2022, and every time you talk about electrifying a fleet, it's to achieve GHG emission reductions. So we can't forget that, yes, we're trying to achieve our GHG targets, but the benefits we'll have on air quality and noise pollution are going to be massive as well, especially in urban environments. And we were talking earlier about how certain areas in urban environments have much worse air quality than others, and those are typically the areas where your vulnerable populations are found. So this plan identified a whole bunch of different priorities and possible projects, including a low emissions equipment strategy, proper staff training and proper maintenance of that equipment, as well as charger installations and what we call fleet right sizing, and I'll talk a bit more about that later. But before we move on, I want to say that our corporate fleet encompasses our vehicles that we use for our day-to-day operations, but it also encompasses all of our equipment. So think when you hear chainsaws running after a storm event, or our lawn maintenance equipment that are out every day of the growing season doing lawn maintenance. So we have a lot of equipment, and every municipality does just for day-to-day operations. Next slide, please. We can skip past this. This was just to show the community profile of how much the transportation sector takes up with community emissions. And these graphs here show our corporate emissions. So the town of Ajax, very similar to the region, our fleet makes up about 36% of our total GHG emissions. That's second just barely to our facilities. So obviously to achieve our targets, we have to address our corporate fleet. And obviously, I think Ian mentioned it, but our heavy duty equipment, our snow plows, our forestry vehicles, and our lawn maintenance equipment, like those are the ones that are really adding to those emissions. So I'm just going to really highlight quickly here our journey from starting in 2007 to now, just to show that it's, you can take smaller steps. You don't have to electrify your fleet overnight or completely change it. You can take smaller steps. So currently, our fleet consists of about 160 vehicles and about 100 pieces of equipment. And back in 2007, Ajax was the first municipality in Durham to introduce hybrid vehicles into our fleet. And it wasn't until 2015 that we introduced our first plug-in hybrid vehicles. So you can see the time it took there just to go from hybrid to plug-in hybrid. Next slide, please. So in 2009, we knew that we needed a bit more of a formal initiative and not to do everything piecemeal and have kind of an informal plan. So council passed what they called the Green Fleet Initiative. So it was really an effort to transition both our vehicles and our equipment to more environmentally friendly options. And it consisted of three main components. The first was to transition to those better alternatives, so whether it's transitioning a full fuel vehicle to hybrid, or as was the case back in 2009, transitioning all of our 2-stroke pieces of equipment to 4-stroke. So still fuel, but better in terms of air quality and emissions. It really had us do an informal inventory of our fleet and look at right sizing. So that means you're not taking a heavy duty pickup truck to go and do a site inspection with one staff member. So now, if our site inspections are one staff member going out, they take our plug-in hybrids or our EVs, and they're not taking a work truck. And that actually, I wouldn't even say we right-sized the fleet, we actually downsized it, because after doing that look-through, there were a lot of vehicles that were redundant and were not needed. So at end of life, they weren't replaced. And then it also consisted of more of a public education anti-idling campaign. So that anti-idling campaign back in 2009 recognized that an idling vehicle can emit up to 20 times more emissions than a vehicle traveling at 50 kilometers an hour, which was a big issue back in 2009, and we know now most vehicles actually automatically cut out and don't idle when you're at a stop, which is good. But this program consisted of 3 initiatives. We introduced a new bylaw, which was actually had a monetary fine if someone was caught idling for more than 2 minutes. Community education program, so going into schools and doing different education campaigns to promote people to turn off their vehicle when they're waiting. And at all of our municipal facilities and some of our parks, you'll see these idle-free zones, just to remind people. Next slide. Starting in 2018, we really started to install some of our publicly available EV chargers. So there's a list there and some of the years that they were installed. So that this is kind of an ongoing process, identifying where we need them and what has capacity to have them. So we do have them at most of our facilities, some here as well. And I think the next step will be looking at some of our popular parks, like the waterfront, where can we put some chargers there. And then we were discussing earlier on-street charging networks, which I know City of Oshawa has I think the first in Durham region on-street parking EV chargers. So here's the fancy resolution from council to direct staff to do a proper green fleet strategy. And you'll notice they tacked on that last half of the sentence where we want to look at the investment. So look at, what's the cost-benefit analysis of potentially the upfront cost may be more, the maintenance will be less, and what's the resale? Because at end of life, all of our fleet equipment and vehicles go to auction. So what can we potentially get for those at the end of their fleet life? So that project is in the capital budget to begin next year. It will be done at the same time as what we call our Energy Conservation Demand Management Plan. And like Ian mentioned, it will look at several different things. So what's our current fleet inventory in terms of number of vehicles and pieces of equipment? What type of targets do we need to set in terms of replacing our fleet to align with our GHG targets, which are ambitious? And we can even look at assessing our current public infrastructure, what we'll need in the future, and look at micromobility options. So we, for example, deliver books between our library chapters. So this library here at Audley may have to transfer books to the main one. Why are we using a truck to transport a single box of books? Could we use cargo bikes or right-size the fleet that way? So we really need to looking at e-bikes and micromobility, not just for the community to utilize and have that safe infrastructure, but there's a potential to use it in our day-to-day operations. Another example is we have a works yard just north of us right now, where we store all of the maintenance equipment that cuts the baseball diamonds and the fields here at Audley. well, those are all fuel right now. Can we transfer those to electric options where we have the facilities to charge them daily and store them every night and a depot to store them and charge them? So we'll look at some of those options as well. And then obviously identify a schedule to review and monitor and update that plan accordingly as the market changes. So yeah, in conclusion, a green fleet strategy is going to exemplify one of our most important steps to reducing Ajax's corporate emissions. It's just one of the steps I think that need to be taken. We're also undertaking several other initiatives. So right now we have our transportation demand management plan that's being updated. So that's obviously going to have a huge impact as well. So this is just one tool that we can use to limit our transportation emissions. And with that, I think I have time for some questions. Couple minutes. Yes?
So the previous speaker mentioned that in the next 10 years there'll be a shortfall, but he also mentioned that by 2030 they want all the town vehicles to be electric. But what happens, like, as a fail-safe for, say, a severe storm where the power goes out? Is there some sort of fail-safe or some sort of extra charging station for you guys so you can get out and clear the roads if there's a bad snowstorm? Like, that's where my concern is, where it comes to everything.
Yeah, and I think building that resilience into that new infrastructure is very important, whether it's at all of our public safety areas, our emergency shelters, they're all on backup power, but it's all diesel. So does that need to change, and what does that look like? Is there battery storage that has to be implemented that you can charge up the batteries throughout the days, and when you need them during emergencies, you have that backup power for an appropriate amount of time. So yeah, you're right. We're not going to put in a network that's not resilient, but we do need to look at all of those renewable energy, on-site renewable energy options as well, so that we're not entirely relying on the grid for all of our energy needs. But it's something that we'll have to, keep learning from other jurisdictions when they implement certain things, and I think you might hear a little bit about that in another talk. Yep.
All right. It's all great having electric vehicles and all that. I'm 100% with emission and all that. Lots of control. A couple of my customers who drove gas guzzlers, eventually went to electric vehicle. Having a challenge now after 5 years, they need to replace the battery because they went to the dealer. Dealer says the battery needs to be replaced to get you back maximum capacity for you to travel your 88 clicks that you were traveling. But in order to get one of those batteries, about $4,000. Now, if you buy gas is cheaper, yes, but they said in the long run they got to replace the battery because they're not going to be able to make it to where they wanted to go and come back without charging. How are we looking at that situation where the cost for a replacement battery is ridiculously high for that customer to continue driving the EV vehicle?
Yeah, and that's one of the barriers to uptake, I think, is that the unknowns. But looking at other organizations, I mean, it's not at Town of Ajax, we're not looking at that, but looking at what are the costs that are associated with EVs, the lifetime costs, because as we know, you're taking in your vehicles for oil changes and your engine can blow and you're fixing your internal combustion engine all the time. So there's maintenance costs that most people that own a vehicle don't even think about day to day, and they're extensive throughout the lifespan of a vehicle.
Especially with the EV vehicle now, there's new technology, lots of technicians does not have the know-how to correct that problem, and they're still learning as they go along.
Yeah.
So we just need to get people expert in that area to help these people who are going into EV vehicles, educate them so they make an educated decision in terms of purchasing one of those vehicles and what's going to cost them down the road to maintain and keep that vehicle on the road.
Exactly. Yep. One more. Time for one more.
Municipalities, they use a lot of third-party suppliers, so you're doing this for the actual town. But are you starting to, in your RFPs to suppliers, sort of start to request any type of environmental consciousness or anything like that?
That's a great question. We do have a green procurement policy at the town that kind of is a blanket policy where all of our tenders that go out, whether it's for vehicles or office supplies, have to look at green initiatives, green alternatives. So it is something that's in blanket across all of our procurement. I believe Clarington is really leading on their sustainable procurement policies and updating those as well. But I'm hoping that that's something that the Green Fleet strategy will identify to help us improve specific to vehicle procurement, what we need to include in those RFPs and RFTs and so on. So.
Durham region, our waste fleet, the contracted waste fleet is a big source of emissions, and we're looking at the next contract
So with that, I will go on to our next speaker, and I'm excited to introduce our next speaker, Omira Janmohamed, Manager of EV Readiness at General Motors Canada. Omira supports GM's efforts to transition to an all-electric future. This includes building their EV strategy for dealers and their communities, cross-collaboration on charging infrastructure initiatives, and a focus on consumer education to accelerate EV adoption. Through extensive experience in GM Canada's sales and marketing organization, Omira has strong relationships with GM's dealers network and a keen understanding of a customer's needs. Please join me in welcoming Omira to the podium.
Good afternoon, everyone. So Omira Janmohamed here. Thank you for allowing me to speak to you all today, and especially to the Ajax Pickering Board of Trade for putting together this wonderful event. The title of this event, Electric Vehicles and the Time Is Now, I can really appreciate that because this is what I'm doing on a daily basis, right? It's preparedness, it's readiness for our all-electric future, and we're calling it our electric future, but really, this electric future is coming fast and furious. So I would also like to say that there's multiple stakeholders involved. As you can see, there's dealer readiness, there's customer education and readiness, infrastructure readiness, and also at the center of it, right, we need to be able to supply the electric vehicles and have winning product to meet all of our customer needs. So what I'm going to talk to you today, there's three topics I want to focus on. First of all, I would like to focus on GM's vision for an all-electric future. Second, I'm going to talk to two innovative programs near and dear to my heart that General Motors has and will be introducing to meet those customer objections, I'll call them, to EV adoptions and how we're going to overcome them. And then third, I'm biased, but I'm going to say it's the most exciting part of the presentation. I'm going to go through our current and some future EV product. So with that, we can go to the next slide. I'll start with GM's vision on an all-electric future. And we all know the entire automotive industry has already started their journey towards electrification. And GM has set some particularly ambitious goals for this electric future. Our goal is to get everyone in an EV. So if you want to click, oh, you already clicked. There you go. I haven't been watching. So we plan to eliminate tailpipe emissions on our light-duty vehicles by 2035. And to do this, what we've done is we've developed an electric vehicle battery pack, which we call Ultium. And with Ultium's flexible design, we can meet various sizes, configurations of all vehicle types to meet our customer needs. So we can get, on our Ultium battery pack, we can get a customer into a luxury Cadillac Lyriq that is on display outside, to a compact SUV, to a bright drop fleet delivery van. So very versatile with our products and capabilities. If we click to the next slide, we can offer the right vehicles. However, critical to accelerating EV adoption is customer education and also what are customers' perceptions on electric vehicles. And what we've seen from the data is that range anxiety, charging anxiety are still barriers to customer adoption for EVs. So if we click to the next slide, this is why General Motors has created what we call Ultium Charge 360. This is really what I call an ecosystem, a fully encompassing ecosystem of networks, products, so charging products, apps, charging apps, and also installation services, so home charging installation services. And the intent and objective of this is to really enable and make it easier for a customer to adopt that EV lifestyle. So one example of what is part of this Ultium Charge 360 is for a Bolt EV or EUV owner, we have our My Chevrolet app. Within it, there's a feature called Energy Assist. Energy Assist can do multiple things. However, key items to it is for a customer, they can see their real-time vehicle range. They can customize to when they want to charge their vehicle. So for example, it has the analytics to know if you set your home charger as your home location, it'll know, okay, Omira's come home, I haven't plugged in my vehicle, it'll send me a reminder, hey, Omira, you're at home, did you forget to charge? So really taking that worry, making it easy to incorporate their EV into their lifestyle. And obviously it can do route planning based on a customer's customizations, whether they want to only select DCFC or level 2. It's all customer personalized. So with that, we can go to the next slide. Beyond the customer experience and worry of when and how to charge, the other piece to this charging anxiety is, are there enough chargers out there available? So this is one of the innovative programs, like I said, near and dear to my heart, that General Motors will be launching very, very shortly here in Canada. It just launched in the US. It's called our Dealer Community Charging Program. So this is a program where General Motors is partnering with our dealers, with community stakeholders like yourselves, to install 40,000 AC level 2 chargers across North America. So General Motors has committed to investing $750 million in North America towards infrastructure, and this is one program that stems from this investment. So how it'll work is General Motors is partnering with local dealers, such as Boyer here, with local businesses within their communities to install these chargers in locations which chargers are most needed. So there are 3 objectives to this program. 1, accelerate EV adoption by increasing access to public charging, especially focusing in on remote areas where there are little and in some areas no chargers available. 2, create that seamless charging experience for our EV owners through our GM's Ultium chargers. Now the one key I do want to emphasize is that any EV owner will have access to this charging network, no matter the make or the model. And another, I want to call objective, customer objective or concern of chargers out there today, which this program will overcome, is it will come with guaranteed uptimes, warranty, and maintenance to ensure that if a customer does go to one of these chargers, it will be fully functional. And the third objective to this program is partnering with our dealers in our communities, leveraging their relationships within the communities. As I mentioned before, we want to ensure that these chargers are in the right locations. And with almost 450 General Motors dealers across the country, our goal is to install 4,000 incremental chargers across Canada within the next 3 years. So perfect, thank you. Now, we know having a public infrastructure is important. However, what we've also seen from the data is that the average consumer, the majority of their charging is conducted at home. About 80 to 90% is conducted at home. So if we take, looking at an average individual living in Ajax or Pickering, you're traveling within here, within the Durham region, even if you're going to the GTA and back, within that daily commute, you can drive to the GTA, come back home, plug in your vehicle, charge overnight, and you're ready for your commute the next day. So what we've done is to overcome that potential charging anxiety customers have is we've launched a program called Charge by Chevrolet to make it seamless and easier for customers to have level 2 charging installed at their home locations. So what Charge by Chevrolet is, it covers the cost of standard installation of level 2 charging, which includes a 240 volt outlet for every customer who purchases a Bolt EV or EUV. Now we know some customers already have level 2 charging or adequate charging at home. So for those customers, we're going to offer them a $750 public charging credit through a Canadian local network called Flow, which we all know. So really, as I mentioned, this program is aimed to simplify that EV lifestyle for a customer, take the worry out of how do I find an electrician? How do I source permitting? It's all done for them through this program. So we can go to the next slide. I've talked about what General Motors is doing towards increasing public infrastructure. I've talked about how we're trying to simplify home charging for our customers. And now, this is what I said, I find at least the most exciting slide. I want to talk about the core, which is the electric vehicle. So you can see from this slide that our goal really is to put everyone in an EV. We've got a wide variety of products that meet all customers' lifestyle, from, as I've mentioned already, the Bolt EV and EUV, which has been one of the fastest selling EV vehicles since we launched back in 2017. We've got the Cadillac Lyriq, which is a luxury SUV, all the way to customers who need, raw power and capability, like the Chevrolet Silverado EV, which we're launching, along with one of my favorites, which I'm super excited, again, I'm biased, but the GMC Hummer EV Super Truck. I never thought the day would come where we would have an electric Hummer EV, but it's coming right around the corner. And you can see this is just the tip of the iceberg. There are many more to come. If you go to the next slide, I'd like to end with one of our most recent product launches, the Chevrolet Equinox EV. So the Equinox is one of our best-selling nameplates, and this EV is really a great representation of our EV strategy because it's going to have the latest technology, it's got sleek exterior design cues, and most importantly, it's going to come at a very affordable price point. I'll even go as far to say as that the Chevrolet Equinox EV will represent a tipping point in the automotive industry towards price parity between an EV and an ICE vehicle. So very exciting, and you can expect to see these at our dealerships lots in the fall of 2023. So I want to say thank you again for having me today. I know I've spoken a lot. What I'm going to do is I'm going to end on a 2-minute video, which really, I think, speaks for itself on our electric vehicle and our electric vehicle future.
Electric, zero emissions, zero limits. I'm an EV from GMC.
Introducing the first ever all-electric Chevrolet Blazer EV. Suddenly it's clear you can have everything you want in an electric SUV.
Introducing the first ever all-electric Chevrolet Equinox EV. It fits your lifestyle. It fits your journey. It fits your budget. everything just fits. It's everything you want in an electric SUV. Chevrolet Equinox EV. Finally, an EV for everyone. Introducing the all-electric Chevrolet Silverado RST. The only EV truck that combines four-wheel steer, a multi-flex midgate, and up to 640 kilometer range GM estimated on a full charge. And the only way to reserve it is at Chevrolet.ca. Find your future, find new roads.
That's electrifying.
I love it. Thank you. You know what? One more thing I forgot to mention. If everyone's around on November 12th, Boyer Pickering is having an exclusive Cadillac Lyric display event. Please go to their website or call them directly for details. I will be there for sure. Now, it is with great pleasure to introduce you to Justin Gammage, who is next. He is the Senior Executive Advisor, Strategic Research Priorities and Industry Collaborations for the Vice President of Research and Innovation at Ontario Tech University. Justin is also the manager for Durham's Ontario Vehicle Innovation Network Technology Development Site activities at Toronto Tech University. In these roles, he leads the institution's industry outreach and creates industry-driven research programs with leading faculty and research labs. Justin also spent 14 years working in the automotive industry in assignments that included both production, product, and validation engineering. Please join me in welcoming Justin to the stage.
What a great video, and I hope that generated some excitement, largely because at Ontario Tech we get to work with over a dozen automakers working on technologies just as cool as Omira shared with us. So the future is electric, the future is bright, and it's really exciting. The technology that's being developed is extremely, extremely cool. So yes, thanks for the introduction. Please, next slide. And one of the things I wanted to highlight today as part of my presentation is that there's a lot of work going on right here in your backyard, right here in the Durham region at Ontario Tech University. There's a lot of stats up on the screen, including our emphasis on energy research, vehicle electrification, and vehicle research in general. But the two things I want to highlight are maybe the things that don't stand out as much when you typically think about electric vehicles. Typically you think about batteries, electrical engineers, and things of this nature. But there's a whole bunch of work that goes on behind the scenes related to software, computer science, cybersecurity, and a lot of analysis works that addresses some of the questions you asked earlier about life cycle assessment. Where do the minerals come from? Are they coming from a secure, geopolitically secure location, and so forth and so on. And we have researchers across the campus that are looking at these type of issues. And that's one of the reasons why we have so many of the automakers coming to Ontario Tech to work with us to uncover new innovations that make it into the products that we're seeing on the roads today, and we'll certainly see on the roads tomorrow. Next slide, please. And one of the big sources of attraction, in addition to all the research expertise we have, is the ACE Aerodynamic Climatic Wind Tunnel. It's a facility that has had over $140 million of investment in infrastructure and capability that allows automakers, their suppliers, the next generation of students to uncover the next technologies that are going to allow us to solve the challenges that lay ahead of us in the future. One of the challenges that were mentioned was if we have all the electric vehicles on the road tomorrow, we're going to have enough capacity to charge them. And the short answer is tomorrow, probably not, because if we're assuming that we're charging every vehicle from 0 to 100% charge at the same time, that's going to be really difficult and really taxing on the grid. In reality, that's not going to happen. We're charging vehicles from 20% state of charge. We have different vehicles charging at different times. And the auto industry is now moving to what's called bidirectional charging, which basically means you can charge the vehicle, so you can bring power into the vehicle, but the vehicle can actually also provide energy back, either to another vehicle or back to the grid or back to the utility. So there's a lot of solutions being worked on that should give everyone here confidence that there are solutions ahead, and we are all thinking of these challenges. Engineers in the auto industry, researchers at universities like Ontario Tech University, for example. To get into a little bit of the sort of technical details of our facility, one of the highlights, or one of the things that make us really unique, is we are the only place in the world that has the ability to test very high resolution aerodynamics and climatic aerodynamics in the same wind stream. So that basically means that we're looking very carefully at the underbody airflow and overbody airflow, and combining that with analysis as to what's happening on the thermodynamic side of the vehicle. So batteries give off heat, electronics in the vehicles, in particular autonomous vehicles, give off a lot of heat, and there's a lot of energy to be conserved if you know how to manage those energy problems effectively. Without getting too deep into the science, lots of opportunity ahead, and a lot of opportunity that's going to help us maximize efficiency, reduce the burden on the grid, and make electric vehicles more accessible to everyone. Next slide, please. So I talked a little bit about the investments. To get more specific, we are currently now just in the process of procuring a 350 kilowatt electric vehicle charger that will function in our climatic wind tunnel. Why is that important? Well, a 350 kilowatt charger is kind of today's industry standard as to what is considered ultra fast charging or fast charging for a passenger vehicle. And we're working with automakers from around the globe to evaluate how those systems work at very high temperatures, 40 degrees C, for example, high humidity, or very low temperatures at minus 40 C, which you might experience up in northern Alberta or Alaska or other cold jurisdictions. That's important because the more reliable we can make the systems, the faster and more energy efficient, the better for the public, the better for cost and everything else. We also have something that's very unique in our chambers as well, and that's a simulated wireless environment. Why is that important? Well, we can actually simulate a vehicle being in Arizona and actually make the vehicle think it's Arizona by spoofing the GPS coordinates and other wireless signals. And that really gives ultimate flexibility for product development and product design, so you can really uncover where the opportunities for gaining efficiency really are. In addition to all the sort of technical support and engineering support we offer within Ontario Tech and ACE, we also have quite a bit of work related to business advisory services. So we help companies, especially small and medium-sized companies that are trying to crack into working with a company like GM or a Magna or someone else large in the auto industry. We give them sort of some insights, technical capability, business advice as to how to get their products to market. So we're really working closely with the community entrepreneurs and small and medium-sized enterprises to help them get into the front door of some of these big companies. Next slide, please. So this slide kind of talks a little bit about, again, some of the things I've already talked about, but one of the things that a lot of small companies have difficulty with is bringing the very first proof of concept or prototype to market. So it's called the most minimum viable product in entrepreneur speak. And what we offer is the capability to prototype these types of devices. So if you're trying to make a little widget or new electronic device, new software, we have the capabilities to support the prototyping in our prototyping labs, and those include electronics and physical hardware. The wireless environment I've already talked about, as well as the EV charger and testing. The other key thing that we're working very heavily on with our partners is autonomous vehicle capabilities. And this ranges from testing cameras and how they perform in snow and rain, understanding the impacts of high solar loads and reflective lights on reflective glare, I guess I should say, on how cameras assess distance and things of this nature. So we're really working into the performance of autonomous vehicle technologies in all weather environments. Next slide, please. Part of that work is supported in partnership with Ontario's OVIN network. So that's Ontario's Vehicle Innovation Network, previously known as AVIN. And one of the things we are doing as part of our overall role in the network that spans province-wide, but more specifically in the Durham region, is focusing on things like clean energy and how you develop grid and energy resilience. So when those storms come along and our power's knocked out, how do we figure out how to get power to where it needs to be? And also the functional user experience. We want to make sure that if you have an EV or an AV, that you're fully capitalizing on all the benefits that offers. Are there ways to automate the way an electric vehicle is charged? So if you have an autonomous vehicle, you'd think you'd want to charge it autonomously, so you're not having to plug in a car. You just drive over something and it charges itself through inductive charging. But there's also other things that can happen within the vehicle that, with autonomous features, allow you to maybe read a newspaper safely, which you'd never think of doing today. But looking at all those things and all the interactions between the human and the vehicle to make sure that they're having the best experience as possible as they make it to wherever they're going on their journey. Next slide, please. This is another example of the functional user experience. This is a project that we initiated through some consultations with the Canadian National Institute for the Blind. And that's really looking at the impact of electric vehicles, how quiet they are, the challenges that brings to that community, and looking at a bunch of different solutions that can help aid safety for vulnerable road users. Whether that be someone with blindness, someone working alongside of the road, like a construction worker working on a roadway, kids in a school zone, and things of this nature, trying to figure out how we can capitalize on all the technologies that are coming to market on the vehicles and the communications that go along with that to make the roadway smarter and safer for everyone. Next slide. Done a lot of work on energy-related technologies. A lot of these are in the process of being deployed or launching. We have a ton of work on electric vehicle charging. The automakers really have the electric vehicle part of the R&D figured out. They have huge teams working on it. One of the things that we really think we can make a big impact in is how we get the energy from the grid, from a battery, from some other renewable energy source into the vehicle, and in a way that's fast, reliable, and safe. So we have a number of projects here that are highlighted on the screen with our local utility companies, the province of Ontario, the Canadian government, the Durham region. So we're very active in this space, and it's really one of the big enablers to wider spread EV adoption. Next slide, please. This is one of the projects that we're working on right now. This goes to the grid and energy resiliency question. We do have what's called deployable energy hubs under development. These are energy hubs that can provide energy in multiple directions depending on the situation. So you can use it to charge your vehicles, to offset peak demand rates, provide backup energy when there's a power outage. So there's a ton of work or a ton of opportunity from these types of deployable energy hubs that are being worked on and tested and deployed eventually on Ontario Tech's campus for broader deployment within the community. Next slide. And maybe to cap it off, one of the things we are doing or partnering on is a project called Project Arrow. And for those of you that may remember or have heard about the original Arrow, which was Canada's fighter jet plane back in the 60s, this project was really named after that, and it's an opportunity for us to support the Canadian supplier community in showcasing the capability of Canadian and Ontario's talent. So our engineering talent, the innovation talent at our universities, at our supply base, and so forth and so on. So if you look at that list on the left-hand side of your screen, a wide variety of technologies are going to be displayed and promoted via this vehicle that we've developed in partnership with the Automotive Parts Manufacturers Association. The vehicle chief engineer has very high caliber. He came to us from Aston Martin. So those of you that have ever watched a James Bond movie in the last few James Bond movies, Fraser was the person that actually was the person that was responsible for the vehicles in the James Bond movie. So very high caliber individual, really cool guy to work with, and a really cool project to be part of. So this slide, really to cap off the presentation, I think, is basically illustrates all the different partners that are working with Ontario Tech and the APMA to make this vehicle happen. So all of these suppliers from across Canada will be able to showcase their technologies at the 2023 Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas. So for any of you that are traveling down to Las Vegas for that show, you'll see this vehicle and a number of our partners alongside with us in the APMA talking about what a great place Canada is to innovate and create new technologies for autonomous and electric vehicles. Next slide. And that's it. Thanks very much. And with that, I would like to introduce Matthew Lavina to the podium. Once I get my glasses on, I'll read the rest of it. So Matthew is the energy analyst for Elexicon Group. Matthew supports Elexicon Group's efforts to source, develop, and implement breakthrough energy-saving technology and initiatives within our communities. One recent initiative includes being a part of an EV coast-to-coast tour, speaking with communities across the country, showcasing the benefits of EVs and the new insights on EV infrastructure. The initiative places an emphasis on consumer education and provides greater awareness of Canada's 2030 emissions reduction plan. Please welcome Matthew to the stage.
Hey everyone, it's great to be here. So, I was a part of a coast-to-coast tour in partnership with Natural Resources Canada. And so what we did was we went from Vancouver to Halifax. The trip is actually still going on. And what we did was to kind of gauge communities on their perception on everything EV, answering all their questions. And the result of that is the trip is actually still going on. And the result of that was overwhelmingly positive. Don't ask me how Alberta went, but no, in all honesty, the way that the trip is going and the way that we talked to a lot of people realize that EV is no longer a wave, it's currently here. And what I'm going to talk to you about today is essentially what Elexicon Group does. So, sorry, next slide. Although closely affiliated with Elexicon Energy, Elexicon Group is mainly an energy management, energy services company. So we manage energy projects all across Canada. And what we do is we provide turnkey energy solutions to reduce utility spend and GHG emissions. So mainly projects pertaining to on-site power generation, solar, wind, and within the last couple of years, we've been heavily tied to electric vehicle charging and supporting and bolstering the EV infrastructure across Canada. So with that being said, we are pros on the operations and project management side, as well as we also specialize in the regulatory side of energy. So we actually navigate federal funding programs in order to actually fund, or at least partially fund, different energy initiatives. Today I'm going to be going into zero emission vehicle infrastructure program that Ian touched on earlier. And it'll be a little bit more on the technical side for anybody technically minded. So what ZVIP pretty much focuses around is to address the lack of charging stations and refueling stations in Canada to actually help support a lot of the EVs that are going to be on the road in the future. So what started in 2019 as an initial investment of $150 million has turned into a $680 million venture up until 2027. Next slide, please. So this was already shown, but to kind of dive more into it and how you can utilize the funding for businesses and corporations is deploying chargers, and these are the different places that you can deploy chargers, so public places, on-street, and workplaces. So what ZVIP actually covers is up to 50% of total project costs for EV infrastructure, up to $5,000 per connector, and for Indigenous businesses and communities, up to 75% of total project costs, up to $7,500 per connector. Now, I do want to note larger projects with a minimum of 20 chargers or more actually closed last month on August 11th. But smaller projects, however, still can be achieved through delivery organizations, and I'm going to go into that a little bit as well. And with Natural Resources Canada, we'll have, since this is on hold for a little bit, Natural Resources Canada are having funding decisions right now at the end of 2022 to kind of help roll out the next funding rounds. So although, oh no, that's perfect actually. So there's actually two ways to access the funding. One is through Elexicon Group or other delivery organizations. So what ZVIP and Natural Resources Canada has done is they've actually allocated funds towards us in order to distribute a portion of the ZVIP funding. Two different streams would be directly through Enercan and Natural Resources Canada. Again, this is for bigger and larger projects. What we've done for us, so actually applying for it's a lot. So what we do is we'll actually do the application process on your behalf. So that includes a 20+ page application as well as the funding guide looking into it. And So, oh, sorry, next slide. I'm going real quick into it. Last thing I wanted to touch on really quick would just be the different types of charging technology. I know there's a lot of questions out there. EV is relatively new, and different types of charging that's available. So there's 3 different levels. Level 1, that's standard, usually comes with the vehicle. And charging times, to give you an idea, usually takes between 8 and 16 hours. So although it's perfect for at-home use, it's mostly catered to emergency situations. Another level would be level 2. Now this is mainly the projects that we handle and that we deploy across Canada. So level 2 are mainly focused on multi-unit residential buildings, commercial places, as well as like at home. So, but not all level 2 chargers are the same, and they have different ranges. So these are examples of level 2s right here. And lastly, level 3. So this is something that is uncommon in the charger world, however most commonly seen. So this is mainly pertains to a lot of the Tesla chargers out there, and mostly found in a lot of really busy major roadways as well as malls. So what I did want to talk about today was also the connection. So the connector types are going to be standardized, and this is slowly becoming the industry standard. And this connector will be universal between all EVs. And here are just different examples of that. So essentially, what we'll do is we essentially process applications on your behalf in order to get these projects funded. Now, there's a lot of funding available, and there's a long wait list because Natural Resources Canada is overwhelmed with the amount of support that goes into electric vehicle charging. So, essentially what we do is we'll handle all project details from start to finish, especially for businesses. We just need your direction. So in terms of if you were interested or wanted to figure out what a project like this would cost, how many chargers and where, we actually conduct a free audit as well, and we'll handle all pricing as well. Obviously, have a little bit more time for questions. I know it'll be more of a natural state, so I'm also open to any questions as well. Yes, in the back.
How much is a charger?
So a charger, that's a great question. A charger actually ranges between $500 all the way up to $1,500. For level 3s, you can actually expect to see, this is more for institutions, and you can expect to see that price between $60,000 and over $100,000. Yeah. Yeah, again, more technical questions, the better. Going across country, we've received a lot of feedback, mostly positive, and yes, a lot of people have touched on the infrastructure. So, yes?
Regarding infrastructure, how come you guys don't target gas stations that are already in place? Like they're already on all the corners, is that something to do with the different type of, like are they fighting with each other, or why can't we do that?
So,
I see the Tesla chargers in like Walmart parking lots.
yes.
I've seen tons of those. Household goods, obviously, sometimes at the dealerships and stuff like that. But like for people that are going to be driving cars all the time, would that not be a logical step to have one Petro and SO and SUV?
You know, we're actually looking at into all different types of opportunities, especially stuff like that. But right now, with the infrastructure is in place, it's already mentioned that more than 80% of the charging, 80 to 90% of the charging happens at home. So that's pretty much where we'll target for infrastructure specifically. Another, I guess, talking point that I did also have is it going to handle the capacity, especially for charging? So if you have 10, 20 chargers, especially in a multi-residential unit apartment building, there are safeguards. So another thing that I did want to touch on is load management. So load management essentially optimizes the available capacity, so that way all chargers, you can charge a car with all chargers, however you will not go over your available capacity. So I will take a couple more questions. If anyone has questions about charging, infrastructure, yes.
Can you speak a little bit about different in speed, say like for a standard electric sedan between a level 1, level 2, and level 3?
Yeah, essentially, so if you can just go back, sorry. So for a level 2, it has a little bit more juice, so this would be a lot quicker. So for the charging speed for a level 2 would be between 8 to 10 hours, so it's perfect for at home overnight. And for a level 3, it would be less than an hour, maybe 30, 40 minutes. With a level 2, you can easily install it in a home with, you just need access to a 240 volt plug. So anything just like a oven, washer, dryer, and with a level 3, that's going to be a little bit more. Yeah. Yes.
Have you thought about ways to prevent, like I saw a YouTube video about a fellow that was driving a vehicle across Canada that would accept level 3 charging. And one thing that irritated him the most was when he went to go to a level 3 charger, there'd be a vehicle on there that couldn't be charged at level 3, but yet it was there. And so he had to wait till this other vehicle left before he could hook up to it.
Yeah.
And you're saying that they're standardizing all the plugs. So is there a way to prevent that from happening?
That's a great question. So yes, there are standardizing all the plugs, and what Tesla, even Tesla too, Tesla is also kind of in that group as well, where they'll offer a certain adapter to be compatible and accommodate that type of charger. So this is slowly becoming the USB of the charger world. Yes.
From the Elexicon energy side.
Yes.
You want to talk about what you need to do specifically on the residential side to prepare and make sure that your home can easily accept some of these charging, because it's not as easy as what you'll see some people do is check a YouTube video. They think that they've spent like $65,000 to $120,000, dollars for their vehicle, and then they use extension cords.
Yes. I definitely recommend you get a certified electrician to conduct an audit or at least a site visit at your home in order for installing. Yes.
And then in terms of your home, a lot of homes still standard, even on new builds, have 100 amp service that they kind of have your utility boxes available. But given to your point, you have a lot of other people have swimming pools. People have, especially out here in Ajax and Pickering. People have hot tubs. What kind of a load do you have to up? Yeah, what do you need to do in terms of your home to upgrade to get to this level?
That's a good question. So it really depends. I know a lot of that, especially if we're talking residential homes, I would suggest just making sure you get the right people in there to check it out. And most of the residential homes, especially that we've looked at, can accommodate a level 2 charger, no problem. Yes. Thank you, everybody. Yes. Well. So, you know what? I will stick around. If you have any other additional questions, I'll be here.
Wow, what a great afternoon. I learned a lot. I keep thinking my Opa, when he was on this planet, he retired from a fairly major car manufacturing company. I'm sure you can think of who. And he would say right now, oh, you got to jump on that. Those lineups at Costco gas station is like 40 minutes to get your gas. You won't have to do that anymore. So if he was here, he'd be telling me to jump on that and get an EV, even though it would take 2 years. But hey, and the last presentation was great because I had questions about, so how do you get it in your house and how does that all work? And so good job on that. Anyway, thanks everyone. Just want to thank Elexicon and Surgerest Canada. Without your support, today does not happen. And definitely a special thanks to Express Employment. So if your birthday, Ed, if your birthday is close to today, you can take home the centerpiece, Ed. It took me a while to get your attention. I guess that's what happens when you have a birthday week. So please take them home. They're definitely lovely fall flowers. Our next event is the Mayoral Candidates Election Forum on October 5th. It's a not to miss, and it's at Deer Creek, and it is sponsored by Durham Region Association of Realtors and Toronto Regional Real Estate Board, and it's definitely not to miss. I hope to see you there. Deer Creek is fantastic. The food is wonderful. I wish you all an excellent day in business. Enjoy the test drives if you're doing it. If you're gonna play hooky and knock off for the day and enjoy your weekend, you know what, have at it. So thanks everyone for attending. Pleased to host you today, and hopefully you learned a lot like I did.